Hi, this is Melissa with Tuesday Morning Sketches. So I decided to try something new, and that was to make a video to share some fun techniques that you can use to combine with our sketches. Now, my video is pretty basic, and I promise that I will improve. But let's go ahead and get started. Here's our sketch that we're using. This one is by Debbie. The stamp set that I am featuring is the Thinking of You Always stamp set by Pink & Made. And I'm also going to be doing some partial ink blending with this stencil that I made. Now, I picked up some stencil material at Michael's, and I'm using my Silhouette Cameo and this cut file that I found in the Silhouette online store. I made my own stencil. And using some Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink, I'm just going to do some real easy ink blending onto this card base. Inking up the blending tool, I want to tap some of that excess ink off. I want to keep most of my darker concentrated color towards the top. And even if I get a little bit of a splotch, it's okay because I want to cut this down, and so I can cut that splotch away. I'm also living dangerously by not taping down the stencil. But as you can see, I'm not going out to the corners, and I just want that nice gradient blend where it's darker on the top, lighter on the bottom. Okay, so let's start stamping. I'm using the Thinking of You sentiment. Now, it is a long sentiment, but I'm okay with cutting my stamp. I know it's kind of freaks some people out, but I'm good with stamp surgery. It'll go back together just fine when I'm ready to stamp it as a long sentiment. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to prep my surface. So using my EK Success powder tool, I'm going to just rub this powder all over to remove any oils or icky stuff on my surface. Now, this EK Success powder tool, it's actually supposed to shake out some powder, but that part has never worked for me. So as you can see, I took the top off and I tap out a little bit. If anybody has some tips on how to make that work, please leave me a comment. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm inking up my stamp with the Peacock Feathers ink, and I'm using my Mini Misty because the technique that I want to do is I want to overstamp that sentiment. And this is a really easy way to stretch out or get the most out of all of your colors that you have, and not necessarily have to have every color of embossing powder. The Misty makes this a whole lot easier. You don't have to do this, but as I said, it's just a little bit easier. So I'm going to ink up my stamp with Versamark and overstamp that image. I press pretty firmly, and probably a little too firmly for some, but I think it's just because I need to re-ink my Versamark pad. So then I'm going to add my clear embossing powder, and I do just have all of this in a jar. I keep it in a really pretty tea box. It's meant to hold tea bags, but I like it for my jars of embossing powder. Tap off the excess, and then of course everybody knows, put it away. And I'm sorry, I tried to edit that out, but it made the video a little bit too choppy. But anyway, so we're going to tap off the excess, put the excess back in, and then just heat this up. And as I said, this is a great way to stretch out your supplies. This technique will work with any color you have. It doesn't have to be an oxide ink. And just melt that embossing powder. I'm going to put my my cardstock back into the Misty. And now I'm ready to stamp the flower and the leaf. I already have that in my Misty, and I'm not going to re-prep the surface or anything. I'm just going to stamp that down. And again, like I said, I probably press harder than most would really have to. And then I'm just going to move that leaf stamp over so that I have 2 leaves. Okay, and then I'm going to take this out of my MISTI, and I'm using Glacier White Embossing Powder by Nuvo. And Nuvo embossing powders are quickly becoming one of my favorite. But I think for this stamp, it really needed to be some detail powder because it does look a little grainy. But that's okay. So I just heated that up. And now what I want to do is there is a little cluster of flowers in this stamp set. And I'm going to stamp that fairly close to the sentiment that I already stamped. And it might get cut off in the die that I'm using, but that's okay. I didn't want to cut out the sentiment first and then try this because sometimes my pressure isn't right and then I might miss something. So this way it's even pressure, it's all over, and I get the entire image. So once again, I'm going to add the white embossing powder. And I'll heat that up real quick. And then here's the oval die. It's the stitched oval die from CC Designs. I'm going to center that over the sentiment and hold it down with just a couple pieces of washi tape or purple tape or whatever you happen to have. This just makes sure that it doesn't shift. I'm going to bring up my Cuttlebug and oh, sorry, I had the tripod leg. I promise I won't have that happen again. But anyway, so I'm just going to run this through my Cuttlebug real quick. And move my Cuttlebug out of the way. I'm not going to do any other die cutting. And then just pop this sentiment out. Okay, then I'm going to grab the Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink again. And I just want to bring in just a little bit of the ink to highlight those flowers. So I'm going to ink up the blending tool and then tap, 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 get off that excess because I want to keep this fairly light. And I think in the end, I still have a little bit more ink than I really planned. So if you want to keep it really light, hardly ink up at all. The other thing you could do instead of stamping those flowers, you could bring back that stencil and pick up a little bit of that to decorate it. But there you go. All right. Oh, and then let's go ahead and color our images as well. So again, with that same color, I'm going to just blend over a little bit of ink over that flower image. And I'm sorry you can't see it better in this video. And then to color the leaves, I brought in some Twisted Citron. I really like this green. It's a yellow green. It is bright. It is cheery. But it's soft, and I love it combined with the peacock feathers. Then I'm going to fussy cut these out. Nobody wants to watch me do that. So, woo-ha! There it's all done. Okay, let's go ahead and start putting our card together. All right. So lately, I have been sharing some cards using a Spellbinders card kit that I picked up. They had a flash sale a couple weeks ago, and these card kits were just really inexpensive. So I'm going to be using this elements from that kit. It was the December 2015 kit. I'm going to cut my panel down. And as you can see, like I cut off part of that top where I thought my ink was just a little bit too dark. The gray that I'm layering this ink blended part didn't come with the kit. This is actually from my own stash. What came in the kit was a darker gray, and I used all that up. Now, I didn't measure correctly, so my white panel there is a little bit smaller than the gray panel that I had originally intended, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to just move it over to where I had intended it to be, which is giving me a little bit more gray on the one side. So that's okay. Using ribbon from that kit, I put score tape along the entire length. I'm just going to adhere it down to where the cardstock really should have ended. So that's moving it out just a little bit on the left than how it is on the sketch. But that's okay too. The sketch is we just have to recognize the basic layout. You don't have to use the exact same elements. So I'm just going to adhere that off. And now I'm going to cut off the excess. I don't want to fold that over because this is velvet ribbon, which is going to put too much bulk, which is dimension that I didn't intend to have on my card. And I am sorry that I'm off frame there. Again, just something I'm really getting used to. Then I also used up all the twine that came in the kit. So I'm using what in my own stash, my Sweet and Sassy Honeydew Baker's Twine. I'm going to wrap that around the velvet ribbon. And I used Honeydew because that green is pretty much the same color as the Twisted Citron. So I thought that pretty much tied everything together. No pun intended. So I'm just going to tie a knot and cut off the ends. Then I'm going to put that onto a regular A2 size side fold card base. I do run over the baker's twine like I do because that kind of helps keep it in place. And then that way that twisted part that it doesn't roll around and it secures it. So I'm going to add that to my card base. And then I will be I am using the teal foil paper that came in the kit. This color, this foil paper is gorgeous. Now I thought I'd put that down first, but I ended up not doing that way because it is a thin paper. So I want to add my cardstock image first, and that's going to give it just a little bit more stability. I was so afraid that the ATG gun might kind of pull the paper apart because it is a thinner paper. It's a bit delicate, or I tend to be a little bit heavy-handed, one or the other. And then I'm going to add that to the middle of my card base. And then I'm going to embellish with my flowers and leaves. I'm using a dimensional to pop up that flower there in the corner. And then I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back of the leaves. I'm not going to add any dimension here. And just tuck those in on or under the flower, just like so. Lovely. Okay, and then to finish off the card, I'm going to add some glossy dots, also from Pink and Main. This one is the Rainbow Pack. The price point on these glossy dots is fantastic. And they're so shiny and so beautiful. And they just really finish off this card very nicely. Beautiful. All right, that's my card for today. I hope that you enjoyed this. Again, I will improve on my videos, but this is just to give you an idea of what you can use. I hope to see you over at Tuesday Morning Sketches, and have a great day.